Donald Trump at the UN absolutely lights up the globalists. I love to see it. Let's get right into the first clip. You're live with the guy. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time to do so.
And Stephen Crowder says Trump is absolutely savaging the UN globalists for funding mass migration right now. Save the West and Japan.
And that's my producer, Nat. She's off camera giving her opinions and help reading some of the articles here.
Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border.
Pause it. And he's completely right. The UN set up an entire network of NGOs funding the migration from South America through Central America, through Mexico. A lot of these NGO funded networks were based out of Mexico, so these immigrants could get into the US under Biden. But they're not just funding a mass migration into the US, they're doing it globally, and it is destroying Western society. Let's continue with Trump.
Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. Your countries are being ruined.
The people at the UN must be stunned. The fact that Trump is in there in person, he is not shaking. He is telling them like it is. Other Western countries are now backing the U.S., going behind Trump with this ideology of immigration is bad. So I hope Trump keeps it up. This wasn't the only thing he said at the UN. There was a lot more. Let's get into the article here.
And before we keep going, Follow the Bradley's Fund says, hello, Guy and Nat, and nice mug. So hello and thank you.
Good to see you. And sorry we haven't been on your show lately. We switched the timing of our show, so it's in direct direct conflict, so we can't go on there too often. But we'll come on soon, yeah.
Yes. From the AP, Trump in speech to UN says world body not even coming close to living up to its potential.
And that's the truth. The UN for a long time is headed in the wrong direction of this globalization and taking sovereignty away from countries and individuals. The UN is currently suggesting that there is a worldwide tax on all global citizens, and countries should collect this tax for the UN and then pay it as tribute to the UN, because the UN has no way to get money other than to beg and borrow from other countries. And the direction the UN's going, I don't think a lot of these countries want to donate money to the UN anymore.
Says President Donald Trump returned to the United Nations on Tuesday to boast of his second-term foreign policy achievements and lash out at the world body as a feckless institution, while warning Europe it would be ruined if it doesn't turn away from a double-tailed monster of ill-conceived migration and green energy policies.
Yeah, and I would like to say this about the EU. The EU has each individual sovereign country, or at least at one time it was a sovereign country. Then they created the EU, which is a whole other governing body organization that these officials aren't even elected in. And then they have a third layer of bureaucracy, which is the UN itself. So the EU is in big trouble with the amount of bureaucracy and government and world organizations they've created. They're losing their sovereignty very quickly.
World leaders listen closely to his remarks at the UN General Assembly, as Trump has already moved quickly to diminish U.S. support for the world body in his first 8 months in office. Even in his first term, he was no fan of the flavor of multilateralism that the United Nations espouses.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I watched a lot of clips from Trump in the UN, and he did not mince his words. I think The death of Charlie Kirk has really refocused his efforts on going after globalists and people that are trying to not only destroy the US, but the sovereignty of a lot of countries. We currently live in Mexico, and I would like to see the Mexican government start putting Mexico first and the Canadian government to start putting Canada first. The Canadian government is a complete global shill at this point, and I don't know if there is any saving it. It may have to collapse in order to be rebuilt. Let's go into...
and also, we know the UN is having some money issues and has been having them for a while now, and now they're proposing something even more ridiculous.
Yeah, they've been having money issues for a long, long time. And with the destruction of USAID, thank God Trump has kind of taken down that organization. The United States is the #1 country for aid, even without USAID. They're just distributing the money different because it was going to a lot of different corrupt organizations and there was no oversight on the money itself. We're going to get into a meeting here with Xi and Trump, and I know a lot of people may disagree with me on this, but there is certain intellectual minds that believe behind the scenes there is a coalition called ARC starting to form. That would be America, Russia, and China. They don't want to look like they're cooperating directly with each other, but I think all three have implemented a sovereignty within their own country. Trump in the US, Xi within China, Putin within Russia. They have all broken free from the banking European Union institutions and the London banking institutions as well. So this meeting coming up with Trump and Xi is going to be very interesting.
From the AP, Trump says he and Xi will meet in South Korea in coming weeks, and he'll later go to China.
And Trump actually has a lot of respect for Putin, for Xi, for a lot of leaders that typically Biden wouldn't even speak to. Even if you don't like these people, you need to have an open dialogue. Trump not only seems to have that open dialogue, but he gets respect not only for himself, but for the United States of America from these leaders. It's very important that the United States can walk with their head held high. So when they go into negotiations and they make warnings and threats, that it's listened to. Let's read a little bit about it and see what they might talk about, hopefully.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he would meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping at a regional summit taking place at the end of October in South Korea and will visit China in the early part of next year following a lengthy phone call between the two on Friday. In a Truth Social post, as always, Trump said Xi would come to the United States at an appropriate time and that they had made progress on the approval of the TikTok deal to allow the popular social media app to keep operating in the U.S., though he didn't give details.
And one moment here, and I do think it is very important that the United States and China begin to decouple, but they want to do it in a constructive way. So if Trump can work with Xi to decouple the two nations so they can kind of rule in their own pole of a multipolar world, I think that would be most successful. I don't want to see World War III or a direct economic conflict if they can slowly decouple and the United States can have a sphere of influence that would be North, Central, and South America. And the core of that pole should be Canada, Mexico, and the United States. The problem, Canada itself is trying to decouple from the United States and is absolutely destroying itself in the process. Mexico, on the other hand, even though it has a different ideological bend, the government itself knows its very existence relies on good trade policies with the U.S., and they are doing everything to get the best tariff deal possible. One of the later clips, I actually think it's going to be the last clip of today's show, one of the economic leaders in Canada is saying we no longer have a trade alliance with the US. We are looking to China and the EU. I think that is the wrong direction for Canada. Let's go back to the Xi article and just read a little bit more. Why don't we scroll down a little bit and see if they get into the meat and potatoes here? No. Okay, we can go into Angelina Jolie here. And this was actually going to be my the cover for my thumbnail. That being said, I don't think anybody's following Angelina Jolie. She is a little bit deranged, and it's a shame because she had a father with a good moral foundation. That makes me wonder, did he really teach her things, or was he an absent father here? Because her ideals and his ideals are completely opposed. I used to really like Angelina Jolie, and it's a shame that she is just a UN globalist shill, and you can see that by these comments here.
Her father is John Voight, by the way.
John Voight, and he is actually leading the revitalization of Hollywood, and the Trump administration has put him in charge of that.
From The Hollywood Reporter, Angelina Jolie fields questions on U.S. politics in San Sebastian. I love my country, but I don't recognize it at this time. These are very, very heavy times, the Oscar-winning actress said at a press conference ahead of the European premiere of her new film, Couture.
Oh, my God. And she is just... let's read a little bit here. It's very disappointing when you see Americans hating on their own country. They want something that is just going to destroy their own country. And she is an elitist, so she's not going to be affected by the policies of a former Biden administration or the destruction and entering of socialism into the United States.
And the thing is, too, do we still want our celebrities and actresses, actors to be commenting so much on politics, or should they learn the lesson for once and stop talking from their platform and just act for a bit?
Well, the issue here is she's always been extremely politically active on a globalist front through the UN. And I think as she gets older in age, she's not getting as many roles. She doesn't have that same star power. And I think she's going to go more and more into politics. I wouldn't be surprised to see a full political turn for Angelina Jolie in the future.
Alongside director Alice Winocour and the cast of Couture ahead of the film's European premiere at the San Sebastian Film Festival in northern Spain on Sunday, the Oscar-winning actress admitted she wanted to be careful about what she said on the topic. It is a very difficult question, she said. I have to say I love my country and I don't at this time recognize my country. I've always lived internationally. My family is international. Yeah, because you bought them. My life, my worldview is equal and united.
Her success is from the United States. So yeah, her family may be international. She may not want to be part of the United States, but all of her success and recognition has come from America. And the fact that she's not willing to give a thanks for that is crazy. She absolutely destroyed Brad Pitt. He is a shell of a man after Angelina Jolie.
Well, he's doing better now.
Finally, it's taken a decade.
But she continues, anything, anywhere that divides or limits personal expressions and freedoms for anyone, I think is very dangerous, she added. I think these are such serious times that we have to be careful not to say things casually. So I'll be careful in a press conference, but these are very, very heavy times.
Yeah, I can only imagine what she's saying behind the scenes. Okay, let's go forward.
But some of them, do you even think some of them believe what they're saying?
Oh, I think she's a true believer through and through, much like Bono from YouTube as well, or U2 as well.
And Rafa says, hello there. Hello, Rafa.
Oh, good to see you, Rafa. And this was a huge story. This was actually, I think, the biggest story of the day. I would have made it the cover story. Problem is, it's hard to make a thumbnail for such a story here.
And speaking of YouTube, maybe because it was on your mind, from Representative Jim Jordan, breaking, due to our oversight efforts, Google commits to offer all creators previously kicked off of YouTube due to political speech violations to return to the platform, but that's not all.
Yeah, and this is huge. We got an article on this one as well, but a lot of creators were banned. Even on X, they're just starting to come back, but it's having to be brought to the attention of others through people on the platform that they were banned. Who was the gentleman that just came back to X the other day? After years. Okay. Gavin McGinnis, I think you said. I think most of the creators have been allowed back onto YouTube. One of the big creators that hasn't is actually Nick Fuentes, who was on the PBD podcast today. And with Christian nationalism really on the rise, I expect him to be the big winner if he is allowed back on YouTube. He's already been allowed on Rumble. He was fairly successful when he was banned from all platforms. So I can only imagine what's going to happen. He may very well become the new leader of the Christian nationalist movement.
No, and aside from Nick Fuentes, another big figure that might come back is Alex Jones.
Oh, Alex
way
Jones.
More important than idiot in his basement.
But I do think Fuentes and Jones had that same arc where they were completely banned and debanked from a lot of things. The federal government actually went after Alex Jones. It would be great to see Alex Jones on YouTube again. It's a shame he doesn't have ownership of InfoWars. Okay.
So I guess we'll start with this. It seems like it's from a lawyer's office probably. It says, Dear Chairman Jordan, the statement of facts is submitted on behalf of our client Alphabet Inc., who is the owner of Google and YouTube, and its subsidiary YouTube, collectively Alphabet or the company, in response to subpoenas issued by the House Committee Judiciary on February 15th, 2023 and March 6th, 2025, Throughout the committee's investigations, Alphabet provided responsive information to the committee to fulfill its oversight responsibilities, producing internal records and providing extensive testimony, including more than 40 sets of responsive documents and voluntary participation of 20 executives. Alphabet is a collection of businesses.
Okay, why don't we leave it there, because there's quite a few pages of documents. I just want to get the overview. Why don't we go to the next article here? And it's going to be a little bit more concise, I believe. The next article.
I know, but because he goes to.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, no. Go to his explanation there, and this is from Jim Jordan.
Yes. YouTube also admits the Biden admin censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong. Confirms the Biden administration wanted Americans censored for speech that did not violate YouTube's policies. Details when YouTube began rolling back its censorship policies on political speech after the Judiciary GOP began its investigation. States that public debate should never come at the expense of relying on quote-unquote authorities, promises to never use third-party fact-checkers, warns that Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech. Over the past few years, we have uncovered massive scandals relating to big tech censorship.
And I will say this about this entire thing, that with free speech being such a fundamental tenet of the United States, and Trump really standing behind it, and I think he's going to go over to the EU and go to Canada and a lot of these other countries that are trying to censor the internet right now through hate speech laws, through giving special groups privileges where you can't say derogatory things about specific groups. I think it's going to have a huge impact having all these creators come back, because I think political debate is going to become even bigger than it is already. I think for young males, it is like daytime TV for them. Young males are attracted to debate, and it is huge within that sphere. But I think it's going to broaden itself out to a lot of different demographics and women. And it's going to be good to see all these people that were banned and see if their ideas are the best. There is going to be a war of ideas through debate on YouTube now.
During the Biden-Harris years, under White House pressure, YouTube changed its policies to censor political debate on, can I say the word now? COVID and elections. Today, YouTube admits the censorship pressure from Biden admin was unacceptable and wrong. Now, to make amends to the American people and because of our work, YouTube is rolling back its censorship policies on political speech, including topics such as COVID and elections. I'm going to wait until it's all clear before I can say that word.
And let's just remember, in the rest of the world, other than the United States, the internet is highly censored. People in general are highly censored. We do on a daily basis people being arrested in the UK for memes. Yesterday, we had the hate speech NGO organization saying we need more censorship in Canada. We need our EU the anti-hate network. We need our partners in the EU, the UK to adopt the same policies so we can force change on these American social media companies. They want to disrespect and disregard free speech by making alternative rule sets. We'll see kind of what happens. I think J.D. Vance and Donald Trump really need to lay down the hammer hard on these countries. I also think Elon Musk, with his new phone that's rumored to come out, he's just developed a chip that goes directly from cell phone to satellite. So in order to censor that, it's going to be nearly impossible.
What does this mean? It continues. Whether you were an established YouTube presence with a massive following like Dan Bongino, or were just starting out to express political views there, you will have an opportunity to come back onto the platform if you were censored for engaging in political speech. This is another victory in the fight against censorship. In August 2024, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg wrote the committee a letter admitting, one, Biden administration pressured Facebook to censor Americans, Facebook censored Americans, and Facebook throttled the Hunter Biden laptops.
Okay, and let's talk about what's happened to social media. Leftist progressive organizations had complete control over social media just a few years ago, and they still do globally on what they are not allowing on the platform. There has been a complete convergence of social media. It is now a lot more moderate because conservatives have fought back and taken back these platforms. Whether it's Elon Musk with X, formerly Twitter, whether it's the new TikTok platform that's going to be owned by America, and Larry Ellison, who is making a lot of good moves in the conservative and mainstream media space. And there is a lot of other social media networks that are now far more moderate and going away from liberal censorship, I would say.
And I do think it's important we continue the thread just because there's
Okay.
a lot more information. But even as Meta admitted the Biden-Harris censorship was wrong, others in big tech were reluctant to go on the record. Now Google is acknowledging for the first time that it too faced censorship pressure from the Biden White House and that the pressure was unacceptable and wrong.
And one moment, and we went over this the other day, so let's just make this completely clear. Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook was on Joe Rogan, said there was direct censorship from the Biden administration and from the FBI. Now we have Google coming out. We had the Twitter files that came out and that completely exposed the federal government for being heavy-handed with censorship on Twitter. Let's keep
But
going.
that's not all. YouTube is making changes to its platform to prevent future censorship. YouTube is committing to the American people that it will never use outside so-called fact checkers to censor speech. No more telling Americans what to believe and not believe. YouTube is also trying out community notes. Elon Musk was ahead of the curve. Meta followed suit, and now YouTube. And YouTube confirms that Europe is targeting American speech and innovation. Here it admits that European social media laws place a disproportionate regulatory burden on American companies. YouTube warns that Europe could force companies to remove lawful social media content and could risk freedom of expression within and outside of the EU. That's right, Europe wants to censor your online speech even if you aren't in Europe.
And they're already able to do this with video games. We've gone over that in depth, but they are creating laws in other countries that are going to affect the bottom line of a lot of American companies. The American government to this point hasn't really stood up and had the back of its own social media companies or video game companies that are within the US. They need to stand up and saying, American values and Western international values are based upon free speech, and a lot of these countries are going away from it right now. You're seeing a disconnect from the civilian population in Europe and all other Western countries except for the US. And the government. The government is going in a completely different direction than one moment.
Well, I'll continue reading while we look at the blank screen. Google and YouTube credit judiciary GOP for bringing transparency of and accountability for big tech censorship. They will continue to hold big tech accountable. And we can read the whole letter as well, but yeah.
Okay, let's go into the next article. And
Well, it's just the same thing.
yeah, we'll just go over it really quickly.
Okay.
Just the 5 points at the top we'll read.
From the press release from the judiciary, Google admits censorship under Biden, promises to end bans of YouTube accounts of thousands of Americans censored for political speech. Google admitted the following to the GOP. The Biden administration pressured Google to censor Americans and remove content that did not violate YouTube's policies. The Biden administration censorship pressure was unacceptable and wrong. Public debate should never come at the expense of relying on authorities. The company will never use third-party fact-checkers, and Europe's censorship laws target American companies that threaten American speech, including the removal of lawful content.
Yeah, and they're going to need to go over to the EU and lay down the hammer here because it is affecting the bottom line of these companies. If the EU wants to implement these laws, let them have their own social media companies. They are unable to create their own presence online. Nobody trusts the governments or the EU or Canada or a lot of these other countries.
But I think because of what's happening in the US and contrasting with Europe, finally the American companies are saying, hey, we need the government to help us out so we don't continue to be
they
pressured.
finally have a government behind them through the Trump administration that is willing to help them out. It looks like J.D. Vance is going to be the leader of that movement, and it is very likely he will win the next election. So this is going to give a lot of cover fire and a firm foundation for free speech and social media platforms to kind of platform off of. I think this is an absolute turning point for the liberal movement. They are realizing violence is not working. They're turning to violence more and more. We've seen this, what happened to Charlie Kirk. They only have two options, either more violence, which is going to make their movement deteriorate faster, or to finally engage in debate. They have been unwilling to engage in debate for the last decade, said they don't want to platform hate speech. Well, if they want to survive, they're going to have to show their ideas are the best. And at this time, with everybody being unblocked on YouTube, it's going to be fantastic to see the type of debates that emerge at this point.
And I mean, with this, I'd have two questions looming still. Number one, Does this mean that this policy change will impact just the US or just YouTube in general all over the place? Because we do know other governments and just in general, other even YouTube countries or places where YouTube has headquarters want to continue doing this. And I'm including Mexico in that list because I know they're still censoring a lot here. So would these changes impact worldwide or just the US?
Well, I
Number
have
one, and number two, what happens now when if they'll continue to run to now daddy government Trump to continue there's efforts in now freeing speech while they were so willing to listen to other administrations. Would it happen if a different administration comes in and asks for censorship again or requests censorship again?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these governments worldwide are absolutely shaking in their boots because they have no online presence or platforms. The United States is the home of free speech, and all the platforms and headquarters are based in the United States. If the government really starts implementing itself on more of a global basis, saying Western values are based upon free speech, I think it could be a huge transition in the freedom movement in the EU and other countries.
And Rafa sent a bunch of questions.
Oh yeah, let's see what he said.
Rafa says, who has ownership of InfoWars then?
The families sued Alex Jones for the comments he made about the school shooting, which I think he was actually absolutely justified in that. It was the largest, what do you call it? When you have is the biggest monetary loss in civil court history in the United States. I believe it was $1 billion. So they took ownership of InfoWars. It's supposed to be sold off in an auction. That kind of went astray. So the family still have ownership of the platform. They actually try to get ownership of Alex Jones' name and his name rights and his X account. They wanted to be able to run Alex Jones' X account because they said he made money off of it. Luckily, the court didn't agree with that, but they did give them ownership over InfoWars. So he's technically just an employee at InfoWars. There are conservative organizations that wanted to come in during the auction and buy InfoWars back for Alex Jones. There was a lot of dirty workings happening in that private auction. So I believe the family still own it at this point, but it's going to go through auction again at some point. And hopefully Alex Jones does get control back over it. That was part of the reason Owen Schroyer left InfoWars. He was not able to get paid what he was actually deserving of. Alex Jones was not in control of how much he can pay his employees. The people that now own it were.
And Rafa also says, well, YouTube could start by stopping censoring my comments. And especially on my Spanish show, this is why I was thinking about Mexico. A lot of comments do keep being censored about with certain words, including quote unquote insult to the current ruling party. So I'd be, again, wondering if YouTube will do this worldwide or just for the States.
Well, that made me just think again of this Tesla phone that's coming out. And I think this is going to have a huge impact in the black market. Even if they decide to only sell it in the United States, I think people will buy lots of these phones, distribute them worldwide. Because it's direct to satellite, it's going to be almost impossible to censor these phones. So in countries where they do want free speech and they're absolutely desperate for free speech, this phone has the potential to be completely uncensored and go around any government regulations. And they will have the defense of saying, oh, we only sell it in the United States. If you get a hold of the phone, it's not our fault. So it'd be very interesting what happens with the Tesla phone, specifically when it comes to free speech. I also know that phone is going to most likely create an everything app, which is going to include banking and a lot of other things. So I think Elon Musk has a real potential here to go to even bigger heights than he was. The new iPhone just came out and that was completely unimpressive. A lot of people are saying they're waiting for that X phone specifically.
And Rafa also says, let's not forget that censorship in social media was also strong during the previous Trump administration. Biden was also pressuring them before being president, or what's their excuse for that? And we also saw the president himself, still president, being banned off of a lot of media platforms, if not all.
Well, I was watching Mike Binns the other
Even
day.
Pinterest. They
Yeah,
banned him off of Pinterest.
I was watching Mike Binns the other day, and he went the legal route of censorship. A lot of people thought this was a cultural issue and it was happening through NGOs, but he actually connected connected it all back to the Biden administration through documentation. If you don't know who Mike Binns is, I highly recommend going to watch him on X, and he can explain this in depth. But basically what they said, the Biden administration said there was election interference going on. So they had an election interference bill, and that allowed them to censor all kinds of social media platforms and to have funding for that. Now, they disguised the language in those bills, but that's basically what it did. And that's how the original censorship came to be. And then there was another tentacle that went through NGOs through USAID. You're seeing the entire censorship complex crumbling before our eyes, and it's absolutely wonderful to see.
And Rafa also has an idea, maybe a suggestion for others. I will create a US account and use a VPN with it and see if I still get censored.
Well,
test it out on my show.
Yeah. And not only that, oh God, what was I going to say? Oh, this is what I was going to say about Mexico. People are scared to talk politics in Mexico, and they're scared to talk on social media about a lot of social issues in Mexico because of cartels, because of government backlash, because of different government regulations where they can force you to apologize on X. That being said, there needs to be a coordinated game plan of hiding your identity, but speaking out online to have debate and other kind of political engagement in Mexico. I think people will feel a lot safer if they didn't connect their real identity to their online platforms.
Someone that did connect their real identity and actually has less followers than I thought. Venezuelan president's YouTube account offline as tensions with US escalate. Maduro's account had more than 200,000 followers before it became available, probably because he censors his own people that would follow him.
Well, this is going to be very interesting because they're unblocking all the YouTube accounts. So are they going to unblock this guy? There are people that are far more worse than the Venezuelan president. There are a lot of terrorist organizations that actually have platforms not only on YouTube but X. That being said,
I'd lump him into those, but
that being said, the U.S. is looking like it's going to escalate into a direct conflict potentially with Maduro. Maybe not. In the last Trump administration, they actually had secret negotiations going on in Mexico City, and they were going to give Maduro, his family, and his generals immunity and citizenship to other countries if they would simply step down. And they were in the final stages of that, but Trump didn't win the next election, so those negotiations ended up falling apart. It looks like Trump is again putting pressure on Venezuela, and I'm expecting negotiation talks to come back up and possibly for him to step down willingly.
So, Maduro's account was offline Saturday, with Venezuelan state-run channel Telesur claiming in a message on X that it was eliminated late the previous night without justification. YouTube's parent company Google did not immediately respond to questions on the apparent termination of the president's account. It comes amid rising tensions between Venezuela and the U.S. over deployment of American warships and fighter jets in southern Caribbean.
Okay, and let's just kind of leave it there. But what I am going to say about this, Donald Trump is looking at a multipolar world. He realizes now they can't be the policeman of the entire world. You see him attempting to pull back from other regions and insert American influence in North America, Central America, and South America. That would be the pole of the United States, I think. Venezuela is in big trouble because China is currently pulling out of the region. And I think those talks happened between the U.S. administration and the Chinese administration. China has been the lifeline for Venezuela for a long time. So we'll see what kind of happens with this. But I think Venezuela is being severely weakened right now, and you may see secret negotiations be re-engaged with the Trump administration.
And Rafa, who is in Mexico, says, I don't think we're that scared, to be honest, only of cartels.
Yeah, of cartels. Yeah. I mean, there was over 200 assassinations in the last Mexican election. When we went to CPAC last year, we were talking to young kids. They were very safe within that space to talk politics. And I said, oh, do you want to come on our show? Why don't you, or do you ever talk about this online? They said, no way, no how. They're absolutely terrified to talk politics in any kind of public space that isn't extremely safe, such as CPAC. They don't want to talk online, not only because of the repercussions on themselves, but also on their families. Mm-hmm. So this is why I think having people in Mexico that want to be politically active but are scared, the best way to do that is to have an avatar and not their real face and not their real name, and to engage in to debate that will evolve the political debate, the
Discourse.
the political discourse in Mexico, because Mexico has very little outward political discourse compared to other countries.
And we've also been trained to kind of not talk about it, or it's not polite conversation. The US has kind of gotten past it, even though they stopped talking to their families as well. And here that doesn't happen as much, but it's mostly about being polite as well and being like, oh, we shouldn't talk politics because blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into the Pentagon. This was interesting. This was actually related to social media as well.
Pentagon steps up media restrictions, now requiring approval before reporting even unclassified information. The Pentagon is stepping up their restrictions by requiring journalists to sign a pledge not to report on information that has not been authorized for release, including unclassified information.
Yeah, and there were way too many leaks under the Biden administration, and those are continuing in the Trump administration. This is a way for them to clean house. Reporters actually rely on a lot of inside information and leaking that information to undermine the Trump administration. I think there are a lot of moving parts internationally, whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Venezuela. They want to absolutely lock down the information that's coming out of the White House. There's way too many leakers, and it's undermining the policies of the United States on a global level right now.
So journalists who don't abide by the policy risk losing credentials that provide access to the Pentagon under a 17-page memo distributed Friday that steps up media restrictions imposed by the admin of Donald Trump. Information must be approved for public release by an appropriate authorizing official before it is released, even if unclassified.
Well, and we did see the first implementation of new media coming into the White House and different new organizations having access to political figures. So now it's a mix of traditional media and new media. And I think that new media is going to have no problem abiding by these policies. It's the traditional media where you're seeing a lot of these leaks come out of. They might actually clean house out of a lot of the traditional media. And you may see the new media kind of take their place fully. Okay, and I think this was Marco Rubio, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and he actually absolutely lit up this reporter, and it was great to see.
From Secretary Marco Rubio, from Eric Doherty says, Holy C. Secretary Marco Rubio just eviscerated ABC's George Stephanopoulos, who tried to claim people died due to cutting USAID.
Okay, and let's go into the clip.
Hold on. There we go. I'm surprised Stephanopoulos is still on TV, honestly.
We shut down AID because it was a dysfunctional organization. We moved it under the State Department. Number two, we are going to do more foreign aid than any country in the world. We're going to do more than anyone in the world again this year. But we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it holistically. We're going to do it as part of an integrated foreign policy. We are not going to fund an NGO industrial complex that built itself up, that was taking a substantial percentage of the money and not going directly to the recipients. It was going to these organizations that had multi-billion-dollar projects and budgets. We're not going to continue to do it that way. We are going to provide aid. We're providing aid now. We just rolled out our new initiative.
Yeah, and this is huge. The U.S. is still the number one country providing aid, and they're just going to do it in a different way. They want to have oversight of this money that's going out. USAID was completely corrupt. They were doing everything from transgender story hours to overthrowing governments with their money. So I do like the fact that the United States is restructuring the way they're giving out aid and having oversight with that. He's going to give a very good point about China in just a moment.
Initiative on health. It's going to be much more successful and much more effective. We're going to enter into direct compacts with the countries. We're going to empower our embassies and our ambassadors to direct which projects we fund and how much money countries are going to be receiving. So we are restructuring the way we do aid. It's going to be far more effective, and it's going to be integrated into our holistic foreign policy.
And that being said, he's going to give aid directly to the countries, not to an NGO that then distributes the money to the countries, so the countries aren't even aware it's coming to the United States or don't feel any obligation to the United States. It's very good to see them going into compacts with other countries, and I think this is going to be big for Central and South America. I think Donald Trump is looking at the new pole of the United States and the new sphere of influence being Central and South America. I think a lot of the aid money that was going to Africa, the Middle East, other countries like that are now going to build up Central and South America.
That's all in the future, but are you standing by that comment? You're saying that no one has
it's
died?
happening now. That's not in the future,
no
it's
one has
happening
died
now.
because of the
No.
aid cuts? Are all those aid organizations
That's
lying?
ridiculous. Well, first of all, then they died because England didn't give enough money, or Canada didn't give more, or China did. Let's blame the other countries that don't do any foreign aid. How about China? I mean, China's the second largest economy in the world. They don't give money to these
So you're
projects.
no longer
did people
disputing
die
that the
because
aid
China
cuts have
didn't give
cost
more
people's
money?
lives. You're no longer disputing that.
It didn't. I think anybody who tells you that somehow it's the United States, if we cut $1, somehow we're responsible for some horrific thing that's going on in the world.
Yeah, and they're cutting dollars in some areas they believe may be corrupt and putting it back into other areas. So if people die because of that, they should not be looking at the United States. The United States is still providing more money than any other country. China, Canada, none of these countries are stepping up like the United States is. That also goes into, oh God, keep playing out. It might come back to me.
It's just not true. Beyond that, I would say that in some of these places
Well, if that dollar's not going to feeding someone a medicine, someone's going to die, aren't
One of the
they?
reasons why some of these places didn't get the aid is not because we cut the aid. It's because there's a war going on and the aid never got to the people. So in Sudan, for example, it's not just a humanitarian catastrophe, it's a war zone. Okay, the aid is stolen, the aid is impeded. In fact, they use aid as a tool against the people, and so blocking aid is a tool and an arm of war. So in some of these places, the reason why the aid isn't getting there is it can't be distributed. Look at Haiti. One of the reasons why aid can't be distributed in Haiti is you can send all the aid in the world you want. It gets hijacked and stolen by criminal gangs that control the country. And so they're the ones to blame for whatever happening there, not us who provided more aid than anybody else.
Let me just try
Haiti,
one more
in
time.
Africa,
Are you standing
in virtually
by
every part of the world?
Are you standing by your contention that
no one has died because the United States has cut aid? No. People have died because gangs steal the aid. People have died because the distributors of aid have not done well. People have died because other countries haven't stepped up. But the United States has saved more lives and continues to save more lives than any other country in the world. And we're going to continue to do it, but we're going to do it the right way and in a responsible way. We're not going to continue to pour billions of dollars out the door of American taxpayer funds for programs that don't work, and in some cases were flat out corrupt.
Okay, and I do think Marco Rubio is the traditional neocon and rhino. That being said, he is a fundamental piece of the Trump administration. I really hope he is not the vice president for J.D. Vance in the next election. That being said, he plays a very important role in the United States administration. He is the one putting direct pressure on Cuba and Venezuela at this point. And if the new sphere of influence is going to be South America and Central America, they're going to have to deal with the Venezuelan situation.
Also, especially because China just announced it's basically leaving Central and South America kind of alone, including Mexico.
Yeah. They negotiated that with the Trump administration. So a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes aren't making headline news in mainstream media. But China is pulling out of Central and South America. And I think in return, the U.S. is going to probably pull out of certain countries or certain regions in return.
And speaking of China, from Deadline, and this has a lot of very lefty content creators up in their panties, Fox Corporation in talks to join TikTok investor group.
Yeah, and let's kind of go into this one.
Fox is in talks to join an investor group poised to acquire TikTok's U.S. operations. Sources familiar with the situation told
Well,
Deadline.
yeah, and it's not just Fox. It's Larry Ellison with Paramount Plus, Fox, and also Dell Computers. So a lot of the traditional media people and tech people with Dell Computers are looking to get in on this deal, and Trump is the one putting those names forward.
So Donald Trump signed earlier in the day potential involvement by the company's CEO Lachlan Murdoch and Chairman Emeritus Rupert Murdoch. Deadline, here's the investment would come from the Fox side, not a personal investment by the chief executive or from the Murdoch sister company News Corp.
Well, and I also think it's very important that Dell Computers in on this, and Larry Ellison also owns Oracle, so they do know the tech side, so they're going to really get to look under the hood of TikTok, and when they change the algorithm, make sure the Chinese don't have any backdoor access into TikTok. It's going to be crucially important.
So it would be a major deal soon after Rupert's oldest son consolidated his hold over the family media empire. The consortium could also include Oracle chairman Larry Ellison, whose participation has been floated for months, and Dell Technologies CEO Michael Dell.
Okay, yeah, and it looks like this thing is coming together nicely. I wasn't necessarily in the for the government interfering in private corporations and demanding they sell to a U.S. buyer. I think that's a little bit heavy-handed. That being said, I did not like what TikTok was doing with their algorithm and the access they had to the American population. So,
and we'll still have over the worldwide population, and with the whole TikTok being bought or sold partially, I'd be wondering if people in other countries would be able to pick if they want the US one or the worldwide one, which will still be controlled and operated and owned by China, or if you can use a VPN, or if there's a way to get the US one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens here. And is the American TikTok able to keep its place as the number one platform? A lot of liberals are on that platform, and if Fox News is owning that, are you going to see a clearing out of those creators, maybe going back to YouTube even? Okay, let's go into Christopher Nolan here.
From Variety, Christopher Nolan elected president of Directors Guild of America. Oppenheimer Helmer takes reins of union as next round of TV and film contract negotiations loom.
Yeah, and I don't know a lot about Christopher Nolan's politics, but that being said, he is a director and he is a good director at that. So for him to be the head of the guild, I think is a good move overall.
So Nolan, an Oscar winner and one of the most successful helmers of his generation, succeeds Leslie Linklater, who served 2 terms at the helm and was elected in 2021. He's been active in the DGA for some time, and at present is a member of its national board of directors.
Yeah, and he has really focused in on a lot of his movies using practical effects, real film cameras. He really knows the film industry inside and out, and he really sticks to what his beliefs are on how to make good movies. Hopefully, he kind of brings that into the guild as well. We can move on from there.
From the BBC, EU cyber agency says airport software held to ransom by criminals.
Yeah, UK airports were shut down the other day, and they had to go to a completely different way of communicating with the airlines. It was a very dangerous situation, and it wasn't the EU that was actually hacked. It was an American company that was controlling EU airports, so it's very interesting.
The EU cybersecurity agency says criminals are using ransomware to cause chaos in airports around the world. Several of Europe's busiest airports have spent the past few days trying to restore normal operations after a cyber attack on Friday disrupted their automatic check-in and boarding software. The European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, ENISA, told the BBC on Monday that the malicious software was used to scramble automatic check-in systems. The type of ransomware has been identified. Law enforcement is involved to investigate, the agency said to Reuters.
Yeah, okay, and we can move forward. The next 2, 4, 6 articles here to round out the show are all going to be clips from X, I think, and these were all pretty interesting clips.
From Wall Street Apes, the indoctrination is insane. American shows what kind of questions are being asked on her university test.
Okay, and she did block out her child's face on this, which I do appreciate, and that's the only reason I'm really showing it, but it was absolutely stunning to me what they were trying to teach this kid in school. Let's play it.
Unfortunately, I have stumbled across more proof of indoctrination taking place at the university I currently attend, and it's not even a little subtle. I mean, this one's a doozy.
This one wasn't that clip where it was her child on there. This was Trump derangement syndrome questions on university exams, and this one was shocking as well. The fact that they're so openly putting these questions on the exams. She's going to give an example here in just a moment.
Get ready. I am currently taking a quiz for my argumentation and advocacy course. Mind you, this is an online course I'm taking through my university. We're going to scroll down.
Pause it. And this is an online course from a university. You think that they would be a little bit smarter and hide this a little bit more, but they're doing it so brazenly, they just don't care.
Here. This is question 4 on the quiz. We'll read it together. Which of the following is a warrant statement? Mr. Trump's hate speech is comparable to that of Adolf Hitler. Mr. Trump is a crooked millionaire. Mr. Trump's anti-immigration rhetoric will lead to public support to build a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. And Mr. Trump's supporters are angry at politicians. Now, in this same quiz, there's a question about Hillary Clinton. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Which of the following is a warrant statement? Mrs. Clinton is a trustworthy politician. Mrs. Clinton has a long track record in social issues and foreign policy. Since Mrs. Clinton is a female, she is likely to receive an overwhelming amount of support from voters.
Well, we know the last one isn't true because Trump beat her in the election. And just the bias, the outward bias in these test questions are insane. And this was what they were doing with math as well. They're putting biased political issues into math questions in the United States. Mm-hmm. Not just the United States, also Canada and a lot of other Western countries right now. Okay, and this is somebody I highlight quite often, and he's very good. So let's see what he has to say here. These were about two teachers in Canada that weren't even necessarily anti-LGBTQ. They just took down flags that they didn't put on their own classroom door and were fired for it.
There's a witch hunt happening, and it's happening to everyday Canadians, people with traditional Canadian values. Watch this. This is Matt and Nicole Alexander. Thanks to people like you, they're being defended by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. They were both...
And the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms also has a YouTube channel, and it is absolutely phenomenal. I do highly recommend it. Let's keep going.
Fired. Want to know why? They quietly, not openly and publicly, they quietly refused to celebrate and affirm certain LGBTQ policies at their school. In April, Matt's school suspended him from his grade 7 and 8 classes in relation to social media posts that were made about him. He didn't even have any sort of public social media profiles at the time. His wife found a pride poster taped to the front door of her kindergarten classroom without her consent. And before class, she moved the poster to a classroom cabinet. Later that morning, the principal called her in and suspended her, pending an investigation. They dragged that on for 6 months. Finally, on October 26, 2023, the Renfrew County District School Board fired both of them for not celebrating and affirming LGBTQ issues. Matt, rightfully so, said, "We're seeing a culture where if you don't actively affirm certain views, you're at risk." Case in point, do you remember this teacher in Oakville? This is not Photoshop. This is real. And if I have to say it out loud, this is a man, and the system has bent over backwards to protect him. Higher-ups defended him. The Toronto Sun reported that police used to escort him to school. I remember doing an initial video on this when it first happened years ago. Literally got millions of views in Canada and the US, to the point where the New York Post picked it up. They followed him for months. They knew the routine, they knew the car, they knew everything, and they finally got a picture of him. Finally, things got to a climax where several politicians finally got involved. But the end result? He quit. That's how he was removed from the school board. Matt and Nicole, on the other hand, they were fired. And in her case, for removing a poster from the front door of a kindergarten classroom. The double standard is unbelievable. Protect people who I believe are sick. We punish those who are sane. The state has no business, absolutely no business, promoting any sort of propaganda related to people's sexual preferences.
Okay.
And
let's just say this, she didn't necessarily remove the flag. She moved it from the front door to a cabinet. So she didn't even take it down, and they fired her for it. It's getting absolutely insane. I mean, it was insane when I was living in Canada. Thank God I left when I did, because they would probably throw me in jail at this point for some of the things that I say that are completely normal and sane.
And the name of that creator journalist is Mario for the North. You can find him on Instagram and X.
Yeah, and he doesn't take any kind of sponsorship or anything else. So, yeah, very good creator there. Oh, this clip is going to be very hard to hear. I do apologize about the audio. We will try to turn it up. That being said, why don't you read it just so they get an idea of what is being said in case you can't hear the audio correctly. And this goes into the last few clips that we have as well. They're interrelated with this clip.
From Concerned Citizen, "You are quite openly Jewish." That's a quote. Quote, if you choose to remain here, you will be arrested for breaching the peace in Sadiq Khan's diverse and inclusive London. Police threaten you with arrest just for being Jewish in areas of the city. People might take offense to that.
Because Muslims are known to get violent, they're going to arrest Jews or Christians that are around their protest. If this was the opposite way around, they would not be arresting the Muslims. Why? Because Christians and Jewish people aren't violent in the same way.
You are quite openly Jewish. This is a pro-Palestinian march. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction to you. You're being escorted out of this area so you can go about your business, go where you like freely, or if you choose to remain here, because you are causing a breach of these people and these other people, you will be arrested. And we discuss this with you.
If I remain here, you will arrest me.
Because your presence here is antagonising a large group of people, and we can't deal with all of them if they attack you or because your presence is antagonising. You are quite open.
That's good. And we'll go right into the next clip because they are interrelated in different ways.
And I'll just quickly say, I mean, this happened to Billboard Chris also in Canada when they were telling him, oh, you need to go, we'll arrest you. And they banned him from being at the art gallery because Antifa was protesting him and actually injured him and tried to steal his camera.
Well, yeah, and this is why they're rewarding these groups that get violent because they won't take away other groups that are nonviolent. So if you have a large group of Christians, the police know they're not going to get violent, so they won't remove Muslim protesters or other people. It's understandable that it's easier to remove the one than the whole other group, but you're creating a double standard of justice here.
Now from I Mean Therefore I Am, in Dearborn, Michigan, residents are subjected to the Muslim call to prayer blasted across the city 5 times a day. This doesn't feel like the America I once knew.
Okay, and that's good. I think you have an idea of that. And they blast that across these speakers 5 times a day. And I'm not necessarily would have a problem with this. The problem is when somebody's on the corner with a little blowhorn that's a lot quieter than those loudspeakers and they're doing Christian preaching or some other kind of preaching, they're being removed from these Western countries. There is a complete hypocrisy and double standard. Muslims are giving special treatment and special privileges. They should be treated the same and with the same laws as anybody else. You can't implement it against one specialty group. Otherwise, you create an animosity within the society.
Well, not removed from the countries, but arrested in many cases. But now Melanie Jolie.
Oh, what's the last one before we do this one?
Okay, hold on. That one.
Okay, yeah, let's go to Melanie. Let's go to this one. Jolie.
From government.exe is corrupt. Melanie Jolie implies that our alliance with the US is over and says we must focus on our relationship with the EU and Asia. This is the same Jolie that said the world is coming to Canada for advice on trade negotiations with the US. This woman is incompetent and she's been passed around literally.
Yeah, and they're currently destroying Canada. Carney wants another election. He's putting a budget that's $100 billion over, most likely on November 4th, in order to try to fertilize the grounds for a majority election. Right now, he has a minority government, and every action he has taken so far has destroyed the country. But he pits himself against Donald Trump, which the Canadian people just have Trump derangement syndrome, and they're going along with this thing. They need the U.S. as their number one trading partner. It always has and always will be. She's talking about trading with Asia and Mexico. These countries are a fraction of the trade that the United States, I think the United States does 80% of Canada's trade with them.
So I think that our old alliances don't necessarily hold anymore. You know, that world is over. Well, we're going to rethink and work on our relationship with the U.S. because obviously where there is the review of CUSMA that will be starting. It is important to keep that free trade zone with the EU and with some countries in Asia. So when you think of the government, how we react, that's always our reflex. how can we preserve a relationship with the EU? How can we preserve a relationship with
Pause it.
Japan and Korea?
And their reflex is how can they save their trade with the EU and Asia? Their reflex should be how can they save their trade to the United States, because their entire future of their country relies on trade with the US. Canada is just absolutely disgusts me at this point, and their politicians are cashing in on the country as we speak. Okay, let's go into the last clip of the day here.
Was that a clip?
It's not a clip.
Sorry. But from Dustin Grage, wow, Keith Olbermann just threatened Scott Jennings. He quickly deleted the set of tweets after getting called out on it. So Keith Olbermann told him, "You're next, MFer, but keep mugging to the camera." And I think these tweets have been referred to the FBI now by Scott Jennings, and maybe a case is building.
Yeah, hopefully a case is building. This is crazy. I mean, yes, Keith Olbermann has free speech, but it's borderline a call for action for violence. There are crazy left lunatics right now that are looking for targets and to implement violence on those targets after the Kirk assassination. So I am all for free speech, but this is borderline on a call for action for violence.
And I'm sure Keith Olbermann will try to say, "Oh, I was talking about on news, you're going to be fired next."
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
And that's why I think they're not going to be able to prosecute this. And if they do, it is imposing on free speech. That being said, Keith Olbermann has said a lot of crazy things in the past.
And I do think, like rats fleeing a sinking ship, I mean, all of the biggest propagandists and most of the people just on the left, but for the Democrats, they're doing crazy things because they're scared and they're seeing that it's basically over for them now.
Well, they're going to have to engage in a debate, number one. But number two, they're looking at Jimmy Kimmel and think, oh, he got his job back. We can say whatever they want. Jimmy Kimmel was lucky to get his job back. And the only reason he did it was because the FCC chairman came out and made a stupid statement, which then opened Disney up to a lawsuit from Jimmy Kimmel if they did fire him. But no such statement was given for Keith Olbermann. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do fire him here.
But with Jimmy Kimmel, it wasn't only about the FCC and the statement. It was because ABC, the affiliates, and the attack on one of the ABC affiliates, apparently they were getting a lot of death threats, and that is the thing, and a lot of threats in general from Antifa, we know who. So it was from the pressure and the propaganda and violence inflicted on the left that the tantrum that Jimmy Kimmel threw made him get reinstated.
Well, no, I honestly think that he's opened up to Disney to a lawsuit, because he does have a major lawsuit because of what the FCC chair said, only if Disney fires him.
But they've come out to say that it was because of the threat.
Yeah, I know they're going to say what they're going to say. They don't want to bring that up because that would strengthen Jimmy Kimmel's lawsuit. That's the problem. We have a difference of agreement. We'll agree to disagree on this one.
Difference of agreement.
If you're not subscribed, please do so. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers, and we'll see you tomorrow night with our show live. Nat will be on camera on our primary show, Nat and the Guy, live.
At night.
At night. Adios.